On dark nights, when the weight of all that must be done to heal our broken world weighs heavy, I go out. I go out and I plant my feet upon the earth, lift my eyes to the sky, and wait. Wait for the immensity of the night sky that is filled with stars to make me and my problems, and even the problems of the world, seem insignificant when compared to the grand sweep of space and time. I remember that the earth beneath my feet, the distant stars, and I are all made of the same stuff, that we all come from the same mysterious source. I stand there in the dark, under the stars, until I know in my bones that I belong, that the earth is my home, along with 8.2 billion other human beings, a number almost as incomprehensible as the number of stars in the sky. And if the night is cloudy and I can't see the stars, I do what we all do. I scroll my phone. And I scroll my phone to find images of the earth as seen from space. And when I come upon that image, always I am struck by the awesome beauty of this home of mine, this home of ours, this spinning marble of blue and green, with gracefully curved continents of land surrounded by vast expanses of ocean. And from the distance of space, inhabitants of the earth are invisible as the borders and walls, the easements, fences, gates, and hedges that serve to delineate and separate us from each other. The Reverend Alicia Ford, who serves on staff for our Unitarian Universalist Association, asks some profound questions in her reading titled "We Are Not Guests." She asks, whose house do we inhabit? For we are not hosts, we are not owners, nor are we guests. What then is our responsibility? As much as these are questions about the migration of humans around the globe, they're questions about ownership of the lands that make up this beautiful planet that we inhabit together, questions about belonging. If we are not owners, not hosts, nor guests, who are we? And what then is our responsibility? What is our responsibility to ourselves, each other, and the world? These are the questions that drive me out into the night to stand under the stars. A quote from Hebrew scriptures as found in the book of Exodus says, "You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the soul of a stranger, for you once were strangers in a strange land." This scripture has long been understood as a call to hospitality, to welcome the stranger into our cities and our homes. But if we are not owners, not hosts, nor guests, is it possible that the scripture points to a deeper truth, that we are all strangers in a strange land? Would you agree with me that we're living in strange times? It's only been 2 weeks since the inauguration, and only 1 week since our state legislature convened. And in that short time, our way of life here in the United States has begun to change at a pace that is dizzying, overwhelming, and sometimes downright frightening. Strange times. We don't know for sure how to navigate the new landscape as it unfolds. Are we not then strangers in a strange new land, making our way as best we can? We here today are alive at a time of mass global migration. About 281 million people now live outside the country in which they were born, which is a new peak for us, a new peak of 3.6% of the global population lives outside their home country, according to the International Organization for Immigration. Have you ever tried to count to 1 million? So I'm told that if you counted to 1 million, that it would take you about 23 days. That's if you counted at a normal pace of speaking for 16 hours each day. To do that 281 times would feel like trying to count the stars in the sky. Yet each of those 281 million souls is made of the same stuff as the stars and is a person with inherent worthiness. People leave their homelands for many reasons, some for opportunity, some for adventure, and for some, too many, it is to survive, to escape famine or war or persecution. And that 281 million doesn't account for the numbers of people migrating within the boundaries of their home countries. Here, right now, even as we speak in this moment, in this country, people are moving across state lines for reproductive care and gender-affirming care and for safety due to their identity or immigration status. A New York Times opinion piece this past Friday titled "Migration is Remaking Our World and We Don't Understand It at All," written by Lydia Polgreen, says, "In our vastly more interconnected world, hard borders and iron-fisted control is a fantasy." She goes on to say, "The panic about migration, it strikes me, is really a panic about the future and about progress. Migrants are individuals making a profound, risky bet that by undertaking the rare and difficult decision to leave home, they can build something new." Polgreen goes on to say, "Behind opposition to migration is often the reverse, a belief that the only way to protect the future is to make it more like the mythic past, to build something old. But this approach, as we will see, has never been a formula for human flourishing." You may remember the words that were spoken by the activist Valerie Kaur on November 9th, 2016. Speaking from her faith as a sick woman, Kaur asks, "What if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if our America is not dead, but a country still waiting to be born? What if the story of America is one long labor?" Dr. Alberto Villoldo, an immigrant from Cuba who is also an American-trained medical anthropologist and a Western shaman, says, "We can't birth the new with the paradigms of the old." We need a new paradigm if we are to birth a new world, one that will support human flourishing. What then is our responsibility? What if our task right now in this moment is not to have answers to the problems that plague us, not to know what action to take to begin to set things right, but simply to sit in the discomfort of it all, to embrace the uncertainty and the unknowing and breathe, confident that we are all exactly where we belong, here, right here, at home, on our beautiful blue-green planet, Earth. What if our task right now is simply to be together, fully present to each other, to listen with an open heart, to imagine the world as we know it can be, to let the strategies and action plans emerge, to form networks of connection for organizing and responding to the unfolding new world that we find ourselves in. So I'm going to ask you to engage your imagination for a minute. Imagine that there is no place on earth where any one of us does not belong. No place on earth that belongs to any one person or group of people, that none of us are hosts or owners, guests or trespassers. Radical, I know. And certainly not the way that it is in our world today, and a vision that may seem unachievable. Yet, we know that the ways of the world today are not equitable or just or sustainable. It can be hard to know who we are in a world where the rules are changing, hard to know exactly what our responsibility is to ourselves, each other, and our world. What we know for sure is that our faith calls us to work for justice, and the fuel that drives that work is love. What is needed if we are to birth something new is a shift away from the current Western paradigm of dominance, supremacy, individualism, and a materialistic worldview, a shift away from the greed and lust for power by the few who are trying to overtake us. The shift begins when we learn how to respond in this new land, to begin to have response ability. That is, the ability to respond in the moment when we are called to serve our human kin in times of distress. And no one of us has to do it alone. And we don't have to do it all. Because what it takes is small actions that are sustainable over time. Small actions, sustainable over time. It takes local networks of trust and care, networks that are built one connection at a time. Now is the time to build or strengthen those connections, to discover in ourselves and in each other the resources that are available. Now is the time to lean into the networks that already exist in our larger Unitarian Universalist faith community. This is how we begin to live into a new paradigm of mutual trust and mutual aid. The shift asks that we dare to imagine something new, a world that is truly equitable, truly just, and truly sustainable, a world where the full flourishing of life is possible. The story of the Celtic goddess Dowgiert was told earlier this morning, and it offers a vision for human flourishing in our world. The story goes that Dowgiert convinces a wealthy landowner to share a plot of land with the poor people on the countryside who had fallen on hard times. The landowner tells Dowgiert to spread her cloak on the plain, saying that the plot covered by her small cloak he would give to the poor. But Dowgiert has a bigger vision. She has a bigger vision than that. So she invites her sisters to take that cloak and pull it and stretch it and pull it and stretch it some more until it covers the whole plain. And miraculously, when the landowner surveyed the land covered by the cloak, he saw a divine hand at work and kept his promise. And he even threw in some oat seeds into the deal and then put on a feast for all. Now that's a vision worth holding. The story tells of what happens when the land is owned and controlled by a wealthy few. It creates poverty for the masses. It is also a story of how courage and imagination can bring about change. And it is a story of how bountiful the abundance of our beautiful planet is when it is shared. Our Unitarian Universalist faith teaches that we are not separate, but part of an interconnected web of existence, that each and every person has inherent worthiness, that love is at the center of our lives, a love that calls us to work for a fair, equitable, and just world. This is the faith that sustained our ancestors in good times and in bad. It is the faith that will sustain those who come after us. And it is the faith that will sustain us if we remain in solidarity. So to feel that sense of solidarity and belonging, that sense of solidarity with each other, and a solidarity that extends to our friends on Zoom, I invite you, if you are willing and able, to stand. And if you need to remain seated, please do. And if you're seated or if you're standing, I want you to plant your feet firmly on the ground and just feel your connection to the earth. This place we all belong. And then I want you to raise your arms and your hands and reach for the stars and feel your connection to the cosmos, this universe, this wondrous, mysterious world in which we all live. And then bring your hands to your heart and know that you are exactly where you belong. Feel the solidarity around you and know that you are not alone. We are not alone. We are stronger together. You can put your hands down, but I want you to remain standing as Josh leads us in song.